Well, just when I thought that South Park wouldn't get any more obscure, we got into a new legal lawsuit rabbit hole. Let's just get into it.
Great. You've been sued.
Now, unless you've been living under a rock or in a different country, you'll know that South Park's creators Matt Stone and Trey Parker are most certainly no strangers to legal controversy as well as running into deep legal trouble. From defamation to false advertising to even copyright infringement, both Matt and Trey Parker are certainly no strangers to the tricky world of legal lawsuits. Originally, at the beginning when I had heard about this lawsuit, I thought it was going to be another good old case of the YouTube Coppa lawsuit where a company's shareholders who already own dozens of money get sued by an entity for a lot of money but have little to no effect on them. And while at first you may be inclined to point out that $500 million is a lot of money to get sued for, and while you're of course correct in thinking that, in reality, when compared to the collective $1.3 billion of net worth both Matt and Trey Parker collectively owe, and that's not even covering the amount of merchandise, royalty fees, and streaming services that Matt and Trey Parker earn per year, this lawsuit drama at first seems like a collective nothing burger for Matt and Trey Parker, whilst more or less affecting the viewers and collective consumers of South Park's content. However, as I started to go much deeper into the South Park rabbit hole, I started to realize that this lawsuit situation is a lot more convoluted and deeper than it really is. How deep exactly? Well, let's talk about it.
So the audience are a bunch of hoes.
Yeah.
Now, if you've been keeping up relatively with the South Park franchise, you'll notice that as the seasons have gone by, many of South Park's seasons have gotten relatively shorter and shorter as time has gone by. From what started off as a standard 10 to 20 episodes worth of content for fans to watch has now gone to a fluke of quote-unquote South Park specials, such as the post and pre-COVID specials, as well as the part 1 and part 2 streaming wars, all of which being 1 hour plus specials becoming a thing, to nowadays only having an influx of 6 episodes per season. It's no surprise that South Park has taken quite an interesting turn when it comes to how they're currently providing their content towards the power-hungry fans that are addicted to it. And I'm not saying interesting as like necessarily a bad thing, of course, as after all, when it comes to the current state of South Park's content being produced, it's clear that they're trying to take the quality over quantity strategy, as well as the clear notion that both Matt and Trey Parker are like plus 50 years old and have been doing this for 20 plus years. You kind of have to give them somewhat of a leeway, as in, after all, if you've been doing a certain program or show for more than 2 decades, you definitely deserve somewhat of a break from the everlasting defeat of creator burnout, something that affects us all, not just YouTubers, but also the top dogs as well. And while yes, some fans have criticized the show's newer seasons for being blatant attempts to jump on popular trends of that year,
one of the most forgettable episodes in the entire series. I have literally nothing to say. It's like they knew how big this Russia stuff was and knew they should probably make an episode about it, but had literally zero ideas for what to do. Worst of the season.
However, when you compare this show to other cartoon shows that have been around for just as long, such as the Simpsons TV series or Spongebob, who have actually kept up the steady pace of 20 or so episodes per season, but have been criticized to hell for being blatantly uncreative.
You guys have no idea how happy I am to finally be finished with all this. A show that stopped being good 2 decades ago.
And simply out of new ideas to make.
It's really quite sad seeing what happened to Spongebob. What it is just not worth discussing at all. It sucks because I really genuinely didn't want to say that. The writing has taken such a hit and it damages the whole thing.
It's very clear that the public opinion as well as the opinions of content creators who have gone very in depth with covering the show.
Well, here I go. Today we're going to be reviewing and ranking every single episode of South Park.
Still view South Park as an entertaining and everlasting legacy.
I think it's clear to me now that they're some of the most dedicated showrunners out there. Here's to you, South Park. for being the most painless ranking video yet.
But what exactly do these specials and seasonal episodes have to do with this whole lawsuit controversy that has been sparked up exactly? Well, let us discuss.
I'll see you in court!
Now, for those out of the loop, South Park is a hit series that is co-owned by both show hosts Matt Stone and Trey Parker. The show's hosts Matt and Trey Parker currently have their 26 seasons of episodes streamed on Warner Bros., who also own the rights to the popular streaming service known as HBOMax. Now, this is where the special events and episodes part gets a little bit tricky. You see, Matt and Trey Parker's South Park episodes were of course rightfully streamed on the streaming service known as HBOMax. But unbeknownst to the people at HBO, this is where the special events part gets put into play. You see, Matt and Trey Parker were using legal loopholes written in their HBOMax contracts to essentially circumvent another deal with Paramount Plus to create 1 hour plus movies that were of course titled as special events in order to avoid violating their HBO contracts, which given the context of South Park's history is honestly hilarious, given that these guys are the same two people who absolutely raked singer Barbra Streisand over the coals.
It's all just in good fun, except when it comes to Barbra Streisand. We hate her!
For trying to abuse the legal system to control Barbara's image and narrative within the public media. Like, how you gonna roast Barbra Streisand for abusing the legal system to silence critics and detractors when y'all also abuse the legal system to circumvent streaming service deals and contracts? Like, come on now. Practice what you preach, damn it. But anyways, this is where the legal loophole first comes into use. You see, by essentially having these 1 hour specials essentially titled special events instead of movies, they can essentially sign deals with other streaming services to have their content be streamed on those streaming platforms, which of course gets them more indirect money falling into their pockets, but also gives them a perfect excuse whenever HBO Max calls them out on their bullshit. They can just argue, hey, in the contracts you guys said that we need to only exclusively stream both movies and episodes on your website. As you can clearly see here, these aren't movies, they're special events. It literally says so in the title. Now, this is of course where the Paramount Plus situation comes in to get rather tricky. You see, Paramount Plus is a streaming service that is of course owned by the big and well-known company known as Viacom, who of course are responsible for owning and distributing shows from Nickelodeon, but the tricky part here is that Viacom also owns Comedy Central, who airs South Park as well. This is ultimately where the tricky part comes into play, because it's sort of like a whodunit detective special scenario, with all of these companies at each other's throats about who really owns which and what of South Park. Not surprisingly, of course, HBO Max did not take kindly to Matt and Trey Parker's slimy trickery and snaky behavior, and promptly sued Paramount Plus for a total of $500 million, and rightfully so. After all, not only did Matt and Trey Parker essentially pull a literal semantics move that rightfully makes HBO Max lose money, but it also does encourage viewers and fans of South Park to pay for one streaming service in order to get either their seasons and movies or South Park special events, but simultaneously pirate the other. As after all, when it comes to the entertainment industry, a solid streaming service fee of $10 a month may not seem like a lot at first, but as time goes by, that price starts to go up by very rapidly tenfold. And because you're essentially subscribing to two different platforms just to see two different media forms of your favorite show, you'd essentially be paying the similar amount of a literal cable TV subscription just to see a show that you personally enjoy. All in all, when it comes to intellectual property lawsuits, Viacom is no stranger to this, as back in 2007 they would sue YouTube for a total of $1 billion because of fans uploading their copyrighted content to the site with absolutely no punishment. Now, of course, obviously YouTube won this lawsuit because a company, just like a fan base, is not responsible for the actions that they do. A content creator, just like a company, can put up as many rules or disclaimers as they want, but crazy fans will ignore ignore those disclaimers and do whatever they shall please. All in all, this lawsuit more or less sends off a rather important message, which is that the issue of intellectual property and ownership theft is a sneaky landmine that you absolutely do not want to mess with, because if you play with fire, you are going to get burned.
Order! Order!
All in all, while this South Park lawsuit is a pretty big situation, it shouldn't really have too much of an effect on the hosts or the fans, let alone the networks. And when compared to the 2007 $1 billion lawsuit that Viacom would file onto YouTube, that pretty much initiated YouTube to start the Content ID system, a system that is still used to this day 16 years from then, this lawsuit pretty much pales in comparison to how dire of a situation it is. All in all, in my own opinion, while I do hope that this lawsuit might change things for the better, not just for the fans but also for the shareholders, personally in my opinion, if anything, this just speaks to the same personality and exact message that the hosts Matt and Trey Parker have always been projecting onto their fan audience. A constant trickster-like approach, consistently pushing the boundaries of what is and what isn't acceptable to put out there. And to be fair, I kind of do respect them for sticking to their good old selves for so long. I'm Justin Oreo here, and yeah, South Park's a good show, and I'm hyped for what they have to offer next. And if you enjoyed this type of content and are hyped for more media criticism content like this, then be sure to like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.